Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that make a big difference. From retail floors to boardrooms, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. I am super excited. This week we have in studio at the beautiful Streetside Studio 7 inside Deja Blue House of Coffee, we have our friend Karen Hohertz-Jacobs. Karen, maybe you could just take a minute and introduce yourself to our audience.
Happy to. Karen, as Brian said, and I still work at Best Buy. I've worked at Best Buy pretty much my whole life. Started when I was 17 years old in Field Store 42 in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm on my second rev there. I was gone for a little while, but never wanted to leave and came back willingly. And program manager there and love it.
That's great. I forgot that your origin was St. Louis.
Yes. Yes, St. Louis.
That was an interesting.
I consider myself Minnesotan now, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt.
It's been 30 years.
What is something that people don't know about you at first glance?
Oh boy, I guess they don't know that I'm a runner until you know me for more than 10 minutes. You'll know I'm a runner.
Right.
But I run to live. Yeah. I mean, I run for my mental health. I run for my physical health. I run for fun. I run when I need to get rid of torture in my mind. But yeah, I run a lot.
Yeah, and we're going to get into this.
Yes.
You don't just run. You're a very accomplished runner.
Thank you.
One of less than 50 women in America that have done what we're going to talk about, I think,
yes.
Which is utterly amazing. Can you take us back to the origin of that passion?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Brian, that I grew up believing I wasn't an athlete. When I was 9 years old, I had a soccer coach who meant no harm, no ill will, but he told me I ran funny, and he wanted me to play goal. And in St. Louis, soccer's a thing. Like when you grow up, it's score goals, it's play soccer, and I wanted to get out there and score, and I didn't want to play goal. Yeah. Not only that, but I was kind of timid, and I didn't want the ball kicked at me, and so I quit. And that story that he told me about I ran funny became part of my mental narrative, and I kind of always been a perfectionist. And I don't like to fail. And that story just dominated my childhood. Like, I thought I'm meant to be a book girl. I'm not meant to do athletics. So I didn't compete in any more grade school athletics, no high school athletics, nothing in college, literally nothing as I grew up until I was like 40.
That just blows my mind. I mean, it just blows my mind. And how something so small or offhanded comment by a coach can have such an impact.
Think about the stories you tell yourself, though. Every human being tells themselves stories, and they can be so beneficial, but they can be so limiting and detrimental. Oh yeah. And trying to figure out the difference between a good one and a bad one can be a journey.
Yeah. I for me, my inner voice is the harshest critic I've ever had in my life.
Exactly.
And it's been that way since I was this high.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So that was sort of a driving seed that was inside you.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about Kate.
Yes.
And how
this all weaves together.
Yes, please.
And it does.
Yeah, yeah.
So my daughter Kate, who is, thank goodness, now in college, cancer-free, almost 18 years, was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma, which is a very rare but awful childhood cancer when she was 11 months old. And like I said, pound blessed. She, went through 8 months of chemotherapy, came out of the other side, which is good, and doesn't have any long-term effects. But that was a really long year for us when she was in treatment.
How old was she?
She was 11 months when she was diagnosed, and she was cancer-free about a year later. And if you ever see a picture of her, you know her, but she's bright red hair. And I mean, I prayed for her red hair to come back, and it did. And she's an amazing human being.
She's lovely.
I mean, I begged God, please give me a chance to raise this child when she was in treatment. And I remember saying to God, I said, I'll be a patient mother. And I don't know if I met that promise, but I do everything I can to, and she's just turned out great.
So
how does that all connect?
Well, actually, we'll come to that. But so that year must have been just unbelievable.
Yeah, when she was 6 or 7 months old, we started noticing really weird things, like a little spot below her eye. Like, did she bump something while she was pulling up to a stand? Ear infections. We started seeing the doctor more and more, and that cancer is called the Great Masquerader.
Right.
So she had tumors both sides of her skull, growing out of her orbital bones, in her bone marrow, like all through her body. The primary tumor was off the right adrenal gland in her body. It was the size of a baseball when they figured it out.
She's 11 months old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like if you saw the picture of her the day we took her to the emergency room at Children's when she stopped nursing, you would have been like, how did you have a kid that looked like that at home? Yeah. But we had been seeing the doctor, and it's an evil thing. It's just, it grows, it grows everywhere, but it goes slow. And a lot of kids, they don't diagnose it till after 18 months of age, and the treatment is much harsher. Like our good friend Jimmy, like his son was, kindergartner, and that it is way more fatal when it's diagnosed over 18 months of age.
Okay.
So we were blessed that she was diagnosed at 11 months of age, and the treatment she received was still harsh, but it wasn't as harsh as a lot of kids go through.
And you spotted it?
No. So she stopped nursing.
Okay.
We took her into the emergency room. And they said, wow, her heart rate's sky high. And they were like, we got to admit you. And then it took them 3 hours to get us a bed. We were at Children's, and they're like, the only open bed is on the oncology floor. We're really sorry, but we'll go up there. We'll figure out what this is. And they did an emergency endoscopy, like because her stomach was distended. And they came in. At the time, I had a gastrointestinal doctor looking at her because her stomach was distended.
Sure.
And they came in and they said, we're introducing you to this doctor. He's your oncologist. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Right. And my mom was there with me. Lucky, my mom was retired and she's a nurse, so it was a blessing she was with me, because I think I zoned out at that moment. And my mom instinctively was writing everything down. And when they said neuroblastoma, I was like, what? Right. And then 2 hours later, I'm Googling it, and it's like 40% survival rate. And I mean, you just go through hell, right? As your whole world. I know a lot of cancer parents say this, but you drive past these St. Jude billboards your whole life, and you're like, that's not me.
Oh, yeah.
And then when all of a sudden, bam, it's you, and your life just changes in a million ways.
That year, when Kate is so small, she can't really communicate with you. So it must be so challenging to me.
Well, I mean, she was born with this cancer. It's they believe neuroblastomas in utero. So she would do this thing where she'd go like this. And I called it her praying hands.
Yeah.
And that was her way to deal with pain.
Oh, my.
She would squeeze her hands together. I mean, she was a great baby. Wouldn't hardly cry. I think she was just so used to being in pain. I know that sounds awful.
No, but I'm
but
sure
I mean,
that's right.
It was kind of bizarre.
I'm sure that's right.
But 3 days into her treatment, into being admitted, we realized she's also allergic to all opioids. So she can't do most pain medications. She's allergic to morphine, fentanyl, like all the go-tos.
All the go-tos.
Yep, and to this day, she's still allergic. She's allergic. Breaks out huge red welts.
So what did they do?
Dr. Payne visited us often, and we really couldn't do much for her.
Oh,
so once the chemotherapy started, though, she was very, her body, really reacted well to the chemotherapy.
Really? So she tolerated it well?
I would say within 3-ish months, even though she still had a lot of tumors, she was out of pain, which is good.
Wow. It's just, I don't mean to dwell on it, but it just is so, as a parent, I can't even begin to imagine what you're going through trying to read the signs from your beautiful infant.
Yeah, it's almost like an out-of-body experience at this point. I look back at myself then, and when you go through hard things, you go through hard things. You don't have a choice.
Right.
So I don't remember exactly what it feels like, felt like at the time now, because I look back now, there's enough distance that I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for the 3-4 years after her treatment, I was constantly on edge of it coming back and things like that.
On our cancer journey with Susie, the scan, the times, the weeks before the scan, the quiet dread starts to build
Yes.
up, and I bet you and Matt.
We call it scanxiety.
Yeah,
Yes,
totally,
scanxiety, yes.
totally. And then you go through the scans, and you're waiting for the results.
Yes.
And then the results are good, and you're like, okay, breathe.
I was so blessed, though. I mean, the people that work at Best Buy always talk about the Best Buy family.
Yeah.
And every time we would get ready, I mean, people were sending me nice notes and, commenting on Caring Bridge and just support. I had so much support. The whole journey, I had so much support from the Best Buy family.
You're a Caring Bridge. I think Caring Bridge is a great vehicle.
It is.
It really is, because it stops the flow of well-intended, but questions that can be, how many times can you answer the questions?
Yes.
So
Caring Bridge is amazing. Like, I served on the board there after our journey.
Yep.
And I will tell you, now in the time of Facebook, etc., Caring Bridge is protected data also, right?
Okay.
So when you share things on Facebook, it's out there, right? Caring Bridge has kind of a protected zone, right? So they don't sell their data, people don't mine their data, which is nice.
So do they rely on donations
Yes,
to
they do.
operate?
Yes, they
so
do.
Folks, if you have a mind to help out Caring
It's an
Bridge.
amazing service.
That's great. That's great. So you're going through this journey, and tell our audience where it starts to meet.
Yes. So after her treatment, I wanted to give back to all the organizations that supported us. I felt weird during treatment getting support. Like, I never thought I was going to be the one donated to, So I was like, I got to give back to Caring Bridge. I got to give back to all these different organizations. One of them was Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation also. Mm-hmm. And I found out, like, through all kinds of different places, that you could raise money for cancer research, right? Mm-hmm. By doing athletic events. My aunt kind of got me hooked, actually. She was the first one that said, let's do paddling for a cure. And we'll raise money and you can donate it to Alex's or one of the Neuroblastoma foundations. And I said, that's awesome. And we paddle rafted through the entire Grand Canyon on a raft. And I did it twice. And we raised like $30,000 over the 2 journeys.
Wow.
But the second time I did it, 2 of my aunts were there and my sister, Melissa. And we were hiking out of the Grand Canyon together with our packs that we had down there for the journey. And she's like, come on, let's go. And I mean, I think I was 40. And she's like, you're so slow. Sisters, they can be honest.
Right,
and I was
right.
Shut the F up, right?
Right.
And
honest and obnoxious.
She's like, do I need to carry your pack? And then finally she goes, I know I'm being kind of harsh, but, you're turning 40 and you need to get in shape. I'm worried about you. You're kind of not in shape. And the truth hurts, right? But when it's coming from your family,
right,
it's pretty accurate.
Right.
So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I was telling Kristen Rourke, who's a good friend, also a Best Buy employee. I love her. She said to me at work, you could do Couch to 5K. I'm like, very funny. I'm not a runner. She's like, you could run a 5K. I was like, I don't think so. She's like, yes, Google Couch to 5K. And she brought a stack of Runner's World magazines the next day and set them on my desk at work. And I was like, Kristen. But then I Googled it and I thought, okay, I'll try this Couch to 5K. I hate running. And I did hate it. But when I finished that first 5K, I did the United Way 5K at work.
Yeah.
The one that I have. I did that one.
Course.
I went home that day, collapsed on the couch, and slept for 3 hours after I ran the 5K. But I was like proud of myself. It was like almost like, okay, maybe I can do something athletic, right? Yeah. Then I was like, maybe if I do a 10K, maybe if I could just do one marathon, I'll know that this thing I've been telling myself is untrue. I mean, I started thinking to myself, maybe this story isn't true.
Oh, so you're thinking about what that coach told you.
Right? And then I started thinking, well, I could raise money for pediatric cancer research and run. Maybe if I just did one marathon, I could sign up for a fundraising marathon. Like, I didn't want to fail, though. I'm a perfectionist, right? And I had that story in my head. And so I was like, let me go run one race and then I'll do the fundraising. And it took me a couple years to be successful. I did stupid stuff like wore cotton shirts, wrong shoes. I didn't talk to runners, I kind of made a go of it, right? And
so was the progression to the 10K, was that easy?
I wouldn't call it easy. I mean, I hated running all the way up to the first marathon.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I hated it.
We're going to get to that. Okay. Because that makes me feel a little better.
Oh, yeah. And there's still days now, even now, I hate it. But
really?
For the most part, I love it now. But the day before my first marathon, my mom came with me to Disney. Disney was my first race. Yeah, I was going to do the Medtronic, and I injured myself right before. And then I was like, I am not training, whole nother cycle. Like, it wasn't a serious injury, but I couldn't make the race in October. So I'm like, where can I go run in January? Because I didn't want to retrain.
Where is Kate on her journey with cancer at this point?
Yeah, so she was diagnosed she was born in 2006, diagnosed in 2007, done in treatment in 2008.
And the first marathon?
I started training to run in 2010.
Okay. So
between 8 and 10 was the paddling for a cure things, right?
Right.
And then I was like, all right. And I didn't run my first marathon until January of 2012.
And how much of it was your sister and how much of it was, this is a way I can give back?
It was
equal measures?
Equal measures. I would say it was more than 50% though was me. Can I get rid of this story I'm carrying?
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I was like so hell bent on like figuring out why do I believe this? Why do I tell myself this? Is it real? Is it true? Is it not true? I mean, you don't ask yourself those questions, but you feel them.
But I think you do ask yourself that, just not out loud.
Exactly.
It's all part of how you process. Absolutely.
And I was like, I got to prove this to myself. It was like almost to conquer my fear, my perfectionism traits, like all that, right? And I told my mom the day before the race, I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be done. Like, I'm going to prove to myself an athlete and then I'm going to hang it up. I mean, I hated the training. I hated everything about it, right?
How long was the training process for the first one?
It's about 18 weeks.
Okay.
And it's hard. Training for a marathon is hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever want to do it again, which I'll explain to you.
Okay.
But I mean, it's very hard. You have to go out for 2-3 hour runs, on leading up in the weeks to it. You have to run during the week, fit it in your schedule. If you work full time, it's tough.
I was going to say,
it's tough.
It's almost like another full-time job.
It absolutely is. It's very tough.
Between the
so
recovery
I was like, I'm done. I'm going to run this one race. So I get to race day, and she was in one of the parks at mile 25, cheering me on like a good mom. And I was like, she's like, you're almost done. And I was dying about that. And I was like, even if I have to crawl to the end, I'm finishing this thing, blah. She's like, I'll try to find you at the end. I was like, great. Finish that last mile. Something changed in my entire life when I crossed that finish line.
Really?
Yep. I can't explain it exactly, but what I can tell you is I finished and I fell down to my knees, partly because I was exhausted, but partly because it was an emotional, like, tidal wave that went over me.
Surge. Yep.
And I remember thinking to myself, I've been lying to myself my whole life. And I was crying and I was like, I loved that. Yeah. And it was like almost like a light switch went on and I realized, like, this is not just me conquering my story. This is who I'm supposed to be.
Right. Wow.
And it was so bizarre.
So it's not like...
So bizarre.
So it's an awakening that,
it was like totally crazy.
I'm an athlete. Yes. I'm called to this.
Yes.
And I've been telling myself all this nonsense.
And if what happened with Kate, if Kate's journey hadn't happened, I don't know if I would have ever had those conversations or discovered this.
Don't you think... And we're going to come to this because it's so compelling. But don't you think the cancer journey awakens all sorts of things?
It does.
In the whole family.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I think I told you this at one point, but like the perfectionism thing in me, like I remember probably 2-3 weeks into her journey, one of the child life specialists pulled us over at Children's. They're fantastic, by the way, because Ryan, our older son, was 3 years old at the time. And she was like really concerned about his well-being. She was concerned about my marriage to Matt, right?
Of course.
And everything. And she said, one of the things I want you to think about is this stress that you're carrying now doesn't minimize the stress of others in your life. Doesn't minimize the stress your son is going to feel when he asks you or when he has a fit. It doesn't minimize the stress when your husband complains about something you didn't do. She's like, you can't minimize other people's stress because you've carried this large stress.
That's so compelling.
And that was a great,
because who would think about that?
No, I know. And right? I mean, I caught myself, I still sometimes catch myself doing that, being irritated by a little thing when there's these bigger things going on in the world. But I love that. And I still carry that in my heart of like, I can't minimize somebody else's pain.
I think that is such an actionable piece of advice. Yes. Life advice.
Yes, and I'm grateful I got it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And I want to for sure hit on RJ's journey through all of this, but I want to keep with the running for a second.
Yes.
So you're at the finish line.
Yes.
You have this.
And I knew about this fundraising thing too, so I'm like, all right, now I can go get this bib.
So all these things are connecting.
Now I can raise money for pediatric cancer research. So then I got a bib into the Chicago Marathon, which if anybody's run Chicago or New York, like those races are parties.
Yeah.
Like,
are they?
Yes. So I went out to Chicago. I was like, I PR'd the first 13 miles in Chicago. I ran my best 13 miles ever. I was like, whoa, I got to slow down. I'll never finish.
I was going to impress you
There
and
were
say, I know.
it was so many people out cheering, and it was just so much fun.
PR means personal
record.
I just want to
I
want to impress
record.
you.
Yep. So I did that, and then I was like, I got to get in New York. And then I realized, oh my gosh, Chicago, New York, Boston, Tokyo, Berlin, London. It's a special medal called Abbott World Marathon Majors.
Okay, so what are the majors one more time?
Yep. So domestically, it's Chicago, New York, Boston, which I'm not fast enough to get in Boston still to this day. But you can get a charity bib and raise money for cancer research and run Boston, which is how I did it.
Okay.
Then internationally, Tokyo, London, and Berlin. This year they've added Sydney, which is new. So I'm going to run Sydney in August. Wow. But if you ran those 6, you get it. If still to this day, if you run those 6, you get an Abbott World Marathon Majors. Those are the majors. Like there's a professional circuit, right, that people run to win prizes. That's the circuit, right? And I was like, I'm going to do this. That was my goal, and then I'll be done. Right. But then when I ran those, I was like, now I've ran on every continent but at 3, so maybe I'll finish the 7 continents. And in 2019, I finished the 7 continents running in Antarctica.
Amazing.
Which pound blessed.
What is that like, running in Antarctica?
It's great. The hard part is getting there, right? You have to cross the Drake. Well, unless you're loaded, you can fly down there.
Right.
But I mean, I had to cross the Drake Passage on a boat, which it's a
tough
world journey. That's a journey. I'm a seasick kind of person, so I was flat on my back for 14 hours. But Antarctica is
before you ran?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was like, how am I going to do this? Wow. But I had a day to recover down there, and I ate a ton of calories that day, and then I was fine. Wow. But it was just.
And there's not
so
a lot
beautiful.
of people there, right? There's like researchers.
No. The best part is in Antarctica, you can't spend. It's impossible to spend money. You can't spend money. There's no commerce in Antarctica, right? Nobody owns it, right?
Right.
We were running on the research stations on a dirt track between research stations. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It was fantastic. I could talk to you about that for half an hour. So.
I want to hear about it. We're going to have you back after Sydney for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to beg you to come back.
They're doing another one. So I was like, I got to get there. But then I kind of started working on the states. And about 2 years ago, I finished the 50 states. And now I'm going for 100 marathons, which I hope to finish this year.
50 states, every continent.
Yep. And all the majors. And I think that there's a chat group of friends that I'm in that we kind of were like, okay, how many of us have done this? And there were like less than 30 people that responded, yep, I've done all this. So I believe it's less than 50 women.
I've been researching that since we spoke about you appearing here, and I can't find any number higher than 38.
Yeah.
Of people, and there's no like official
registrar.
No, there's not. But it is such an accomplishment. How many years from the 3-hour nap on the couch after the
that was
5K?
2010. That was 2010-ish. Yeah. So, yeah, I would 15. It'll be like 14-ish years to 100 marathons. Which, like, if you had told me that on day one,
100
I would
have.
In 14. If you had told me that the first time I was running marathon, I would have laughed you off the planet. Like, no way, because I hate running. You know.
You know how you hear all the stories about people lose their toenails and all this stuff.
No.
Does your body get conditioned to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Anything you do on a regular basis, it's, I'm not going to go out there and run a 3-hour marathon or anything like that. I'm not going to set a personal record running as often as I do, but I would like to qualify for Boston someday. That is a bucket list goal for me.
And what do you need to hit to do that?
For my current age, I have to run less than 4 hours.
Wow. What's your PR?
3:57:03. So I've done it. But
you're like my hero.
I did that like 4 years ago.
Wow.
So I'd have to train pretty hard right now to break the 4-hour mark.
And you run, like, how many marathons have you run in the last year?
Gosh, I don't even, more than 12. I shoot to run at least one a month.
So are you in a constant state of race ready?
Yes. Since 2020, I have been.
So you don't have to do the build up.
Never.
And the taper.
I don't train anymore, which is, that's the benefit. I learned from a running friend in late 2019, right before the pandemic. There was a bunch of people that don't train, and they run a lot of races. I'm like, what do you mean you don't train? They were like, you stay marathon ready by running every 3 to 5 weeks. Wow. And so I do. I try to run a race every 5 to 6 weeks max. So, and I'm blessed to be able to afford to be able to kind of I'm a good savvy traveler. Like I'm good at finding good deals.
Oh, I bet you are.
And my sister runs with me a lot. We split a lot of things, which is great.
Really?
Yes. So.
And I just think it is so compelling. But I want you to promise to come back because I want to talk more about running. But I do want to get back and talk a little bit about Kate and her recovery. I think the amount of money and the things you've done to give back are
thank you.
So impressive.
It means a lot.
And I also think the community that pops up around cancer.
Yes.
And
yes.
They're worthy of helping us. In fact, if you let me know who you'd like us to tag or link, we'll put some links to some organizations that are worthy of support.
Thank you. There's so many.
We'd love to
Obviously,
do that.
St. Jude is a great one.
Yep.
And my daughter was not treated at St. Jude. But one thing that a lot of people don't know about St. Jude, and they actually don't put it out there this much, is they share the research facilities there. They're amazing. I was blessed to be able to tour them a couple years ago. Amazing. They have doctors from all over the world there that go there because the doctors that do research there do not have to raise money, grant money, because your donations fund them so they can do 100% research versus trying to get grants. Wow. And they're on a mission to cure cancer, like all kinds of cancer. And they share all of their research with the Children's Oncology Group. It goes to hospitals across the United States. That's amazing. So the treatment protocol my daughter was on was not a St. Jude protocol, but some of the research from St. Jude
informed the protocol.
That protocol.
Fascinating.
Right? So even though she was never anywhere near Tennessee, like I helped support St. Jude.
I think that's great. I think that's really powerful. And I know St. Jude makes sure the families don't incur debt.
Expense,
and because it still is, a medical catastrophe like that, catastrophic illness can wipe out a family.
Absolutely.
For generations.
Absolutely.
For generations.
Absolutely. We were super blessed to have an insurance plan through Best Buy.
Yeah, well, that's great. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes. Like, how did you handle this with RJ? What do you tell your son?
Yes.
So he's 3, right?
Yeah, he turned 3 days after she was diagnosed. He had his birthday party at Children's in Minneapolis. Yeah, he was just, he was so amazing. So I have a picture of my husband behind him while he was flushing out, putting heparin in her central line. Like we involved him in, as much as possible. We were very transparent with him. Like your sister's very, very sick, right? We didn't say she could die, et cetera. You don't want to scare anybody, but as honest and transparent as and he had a teddy bear that, had a central line, right? So he could understand what this was, right? And you just kind of, and we were also blessed, like from a work perspective, Best Buy was very good. I got to leave, right? And Matt worked, and we were able to have one person with Ryan and one person at the hospital until she could take her chemotherapy outpatient, right? So like we were able to divide and conquer, so he was never off with somebody else, right? Which is a great blessing.
Right, absolutely. So Kate goes through the treatment and she does beautifully. Mm-hmm. And there's always scary moments through it. But here's something that I've been dying to ask you. So you have this beautiful daughter and she starts to grow up and she's very much a normal little girl. Yes. Did you give her rules and like discipline her like a normal child?
Sure, absolutely. Yes. I tried to raise her as normal as possible. I always do remember that deal I made with God, though. I'll be more patient. And I think with redheads, you do need a more patient. Don't tell Misha I said that. But it's like she has been she is a blessing. She's a blessing. She's very bright. She doesn't have any, knock on wood, late effects of treatment. They really don't know what though, Brian, to be honest. Like she's in a wave of young people that are now in their 20s. There's kids in their 30s and 40s. That's the first generations of kids that have been surviving cancer. Right. So they don't know what are the potential late effects when you're 50, 60, 70, 80.
And it affects a really small number of kids each year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for sure when you compare that to adult cancers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hard things about pediatric cancer is most of the money goes into researching the things where drug companies can make money. They can make money solving lung cancer, colon cancer. They can't make money solving neuroblastoma, which is why you have to rely on fundraising and things like that.
Right. Well, you're going to tell us what organizations that we should be supporting.
Yes.
So So Kate just grows up like a normal kid?
She's at Carleton. She's a freshman in
That's
college.
great. It's a great school for those of you who don't know.
I don't know if she'll stick with it, but she's like interested in pre-law.
That's great.
So she's doing amazing things. She's a great kid.
That's great. I have to tell you this, Karen, and I don't want to get... You're like one of my heroes. And I admire you so much, and I admire Matt, who we're going to talk with in an upcoming episode. And I really hope you'll come back
Anytime.
and tell us more about Kate. And I want to hear about Australia. Australia's on my bucket list. So I want to thank you so much. And,
I really appreciate it.
Come here, I have to.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And that's it for this episode of the most important podcast ever. I want to thank Karen from the bottom of my heart for sharing her story. I want to thank you for listening and tuning in. If you've enjoyed this conversation, and I think Karen made it a really important one, I hope you'll share it with people and someone that might find it meaningful. You can watch and listen on our YouTube channel, and I'll link all the places you can find us. But I do want to just take one thing away from and share it with you from my talk with Karen today. And that is this. You do not know when you walk by somebody or you walk into a store or you're on the street, you don't know what they're carrying in their backpack, what worries they have. So the thing I think we all can take, let's lead with kindness. Let's always give people the first assumption that they mean well. I'll look forward to seeing you in an upcoming episode. Thanks for tuning in.